Once upon a time, a long, long time ago, before our ancestors scratched symbols on hides or cave walls, or recorded tales in books, there was a time when humans and fairies lived in the same world, together in harmony. The fairies were conscious spirits that grew out of the earth, out of wind, seas, and molten lava. The race of humans, according to the fairies, came from the stars. They each had special knowledge and skills, and they freely exchanged their wisdom and songs. No one knows why the humans forgot their origins and became more earthbound, or why the fairies took their magic and retreated to a different dimension behind a veil of mist. At first, few noticed the loss, but over time, members of each race longed for the other and began seeking ways to reunite their worlds. If you are on a quest to find Faerie, there are many paths to wander, but there is only one rule. Allow yourself to go back to the place in your childhood where everything you believed was true and filled with wonder.
What are fairies?
A fairy is intelligent energy.
Conscious, animate energy.
Everywhere there is consciousness, there is fairy. A fairy is an entity that has personhood, that has conscious awareness, and exists in that way, not necessarily in form.
With my experience with fairies, there's very little distance between who they are and what they do. Fairies vary depending on what's in their environment. You know, if a fairy's basic energy is as a tree spirit, that fairy shepherds trees. If a fairy's mission is to be a water sprite, it animates water. Some of them are storytellers, and it's like they themselves are a story. And they go through the world absorbing experience, and that experience is then the story. We see them in a fleeting movement of light or hear a distant tinkle that sounds like laughter. They are the fairies, the otherworldly presence whose legends live in every culture, on every continent, called by innumerable names and given many different visages.
Sometimes we talk about fairy in language that's pertinent to the spirit world and the mystical realms that we're accustomed to walking in. And then we run into someone who's involved in quantum physics and conceptually find that they're talking about the same things we're talking about. They just have different words for it. I mean, quarks, they're not connected. They can be separated by eons, and one rotates, the other one rotates in exactly the same position. There are forms of dialogue that are like a binary language where you have a positive and negative attraction. You have all those kinds of structures of balance where there is conversation between the two, and one moves, the other moves, and so forth. I mean, these are all forms of languaging, and these are all very simple and elemental forms of fairy.
One of the things that I was taught to do was to, on the full moon, to bring an offering to them of food and sometimes things like crystals and flowers, but particularly of food, because that's an offering from what sustains humans to want to share that with them. And so we built a place in our front yard It's a pond and a waterfall. It was a special place that it felt like the fairies gathered anyway, and so we made it more special for them. And so every full moon we'd go out on this little mound and leave food and talk to them about what had happened during the last moon cycle and what we were planning for the next one, and things we could use their help with, and ask for inspiration and so on.
We were out feeding the fairies once on the full moon, and the fairies said to us, we'd like to have a house. And I thought, well, that's kind of a fun idea. I'll take a whack at that. And I went into the shop and I pretty much did the first thing that came into my mind. I didn't do a lot of premeditating, and ended up innovating a process, or at least perhaps the fairies taught me a process of making fairy houses that proved to be unique. People ask me, do you really believe in fairies? Kind of a silly question in a way, because it's like saying to me, do you believe in nature?